Okay, imagine trying to solve a really complex puzzle.
Yeah,
Yeah. But the pieces keep shifting, some are hidden, and loads of other people want the exact same pieces you're after.
that's pretty much the football transfer window in a nutshell, especially for a massive club like Manchester United looking for, well, key attackers.
It really is. It's so much more than just, buying a player. It's this whole web of talks, strategy, money juggling, and figuring out if the player even wants to come.
Every rumor, every potential deal just adds another layer of complication, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's what we're doing in this deep dive, trying to cut through some of that noise for you. We've gathered a bunch of reports focusing specifically on United's forward hunt this summer.
Yep, the mission is to unpack what's actually being reported about their targets. We're focusing mainly on the latest around Viktor Gyokeres and Bryan Mbeumo.
Exactly. And look, if getting the real story behind those headlines straight from the sources sounds like your kind of thing, maybe hit that subscribe button now. It helps us keep doing these deep dives.
Definitely. And just to be clear, we're sticking strictly to the info provided in these reports. The moves, the reasons behind them, the challenges United are reportedly facing up front.
Right then, let's jump in. Viktor Gyokeres, big name, sporting striker, heavily linked. What are the reports actually saying about United's interest there?
Okay, so the reports confirm United have made some initial approaches for Gyokeres. But, and this is important, it's how they've done it.
Ah, okay, so not just picking up the phone to Sporting directly then.
No, not yet, it seems. The sources specify these approaches were made via intermediaries.
Right, intermediaries. Explain that a bit. What's the point of going through them first?
Well, it's a pretty common first step, really,
Mm.
especially for deals that might be tricky or expensive. It lets the club sort of, dip their toe in the water.
Serve temperature.
Exactly. Explore the conditions, as the source puts it. Find out, is the player even interested? What are the rough salary expectations? What might the fee look like? Are there any massive roadblocks before you actually start formal club-to-club talks?
Okay, that makes sense. Avoids wasting everyone's time if it's a non-starter.
Precisely. Saves a lot of hassle down the line if the player's dead set against it or the price is just, way off.
And Gyokeres, he's had an incredible season, haven't he? Reports say he played fantastically well under Ruben Amorim.
He really did. Exceptional is the word used. Key player in Sporting, winning the double in Portugal. And crucially, they're in the Champions League next season.
Right, and that's where it gets a bit puzzling, isn't it? Why would a player doing brilliantly, just won trophies, happy with his manager, guaranteed Champions League football, why seriously consider leaving for United, who, let's be honest, the reports say had a dreadful season and have no European football at all next year?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive on the surface. But the source tackles this head on. The perspective given is that, look, despite the recent struggles, despite no Europe next season, Manchester United is still seen as a massive club.
The name still carries weight.
That's the argument. The source points to the Matthias Cunha signing as an example he joined when they weren't in the Champions League either. It suggests the sheer size, the history, the global reach. It still has a significant pull for certain players.
Interesting. So the brand power is still a factor.
It seems to be, according to this. But there's a big but. The reports also stress that Gyokeres is hot property right now. Lots of big clubs, it says, are interested. And many of those can offer Champions League.
Ah, okay. So he's got options. Plenty of them, probably.
Which means his decision and his agent's decision needs to be very careful. It's not like United are the only ones knocking on the door. It's a competitive market for him.
Makes sense. What about the price tag? Anything in the reports about what it might actually cost?
Yes, there's mention of a potential gentleman's agreement he might have with Sporting.
A gentleman's agreement, so not like a formal release clause.
Apparently not written into the contract that way, no. It's presented more as an understanding between him and the club. That giving his service, maybe promises made, they'd let him go for around $60 million.
Okay, $60 million. Still a hefty sum.
It is. It's framed as a potential exit point Sporting might accept, acknowledging his value and maybe facilitating a move if, the right offer comes in and he wants to leave.
But even if United find the $60 million, are there other roadblocks? You mentioned salary expectations earlier.
Yeah, and the source flags this as potentially a major hurdle. It says some other clubs that looked at Gyokeres backed away because the numbers involved make it a very, very big deal.
So the wages specifically, not just the fee.
Seems like the overall package fee plus wages was prohibitive for others, which raises the question, can United make those numbers work where other big clubs apparently couldn't? It's one thing finding the transfer fee, quite another fitting those massive wages into your structure.
That's a really key point. The total cost can be astronomical. So for Gyokeres, United are poking around via intermediaries, testing the waters. He's flying high at Sporting, Champions League football secured. But the pull of United is still mentioned as a factor. There's this potential 60-pound-meter gentleman's agreement exit route. But, and it's a big but, the wages have apparently scared off others already.
Exactly. And the source really emphasizes that right now United are just exploring the conditions, just looking into it. It suggests they might be trying to get their house in order financially first.
Right, maybe needing to sell players. We'll get to that.
Yeah, possibly make some sales just in case they decide they can make a serious run at someone like Gyokeres later on.
Okay, getting their house in order. Interesting phrase. But sticking with strikers for a moment, where does all this leave Rasmus Højlund? If they're seriously looking at Gyokeres, does that mean Højlund's future is shaky?
The reports are pretty clear on this, actually. They say United are looking for a striker regardless of what happens with Rasmus Højlund.
Okay, so it's about adding competition or another option, not necessarily replacing him immediately.
That seems to be the idea. They view strengthening that position as essential, separate from Højlund's situation.
And what is the latest on Højlund? There were some rumors linking him away, weren't there? Italy, maybe?
Yeah, reports mentioned interest from Italy. Inter Milan was named specifically, apparently waiting for Christian Eriksen's official appointment there before maybe making any moves.
But what about Højlund himself? Has he said anything?
He has, according to the source. He's gone public saying he fully expects to be at Manchester United next season. Says he has a long contract, wants to stay, wants to fight for my place.
Fair enough. Good to hear him say it directly. So he intends to stay and compete, but United are still looking anyway, like at Gyokeres.
Yep, and the source also makes it clear Gyokeres isn't the only one. They're looking at a number of other players in that position.
Right, which brings us neatly to the other main name popping up. Bryan Mbeumo from Brentford. What's the story there?
Well, the information suggests talks are ongoing between United and Brentford for Mbeumo.
Ongoing. Okay, so definitely active discussions happening. Did United make a bid?
They did. The source details an initial offer, $45 million plus $10 million in performance-related add-ons.
Okay, so $55 million total potential package. And Brentford's response?
Rejected. But the source says United pretty much knew that would get rejected.
The classic opening bid tactic. Lowballing slightly to start the chat.
Seems like it. They apparently saw it as the start of a negotiation, not their final word.
And are they expected to go back in?
Yes, the expectation is they'll return with an improved offer. The source actually uses quite strong wording, saying United desperately want to bring in the player.
Wow, desperately. That does suggest he's right near the top of their list.
Now, what about Mbeumo's side?
Yeah.
We talked about the pull of United for Gyokeres. How does Mbeumo feel? There was some talk linking him to Spurs if Thomas Frank ended up there. Yeah, this is really interesting. The source directly contradicts that Spurs speculation. The understanding presented is that Bryan Mbeumo wants to go to Manchester United. Full stop.
Really?
Yeah.
So despite no European football, despite other potential interest, he actively wants the United move.
That's what the source indicates, yes. The pull of Manchester United seems really, really strong for him, too. And apparently United are pretty impressed by the fact that he wants to come.
You can see why. Having a player push for the move definitely helps smooth things along sometimes.
Absolutely. Player desire is a big factor.
Okay, so Mbeumo wants United. United desperately want him. Talks are ongoing after that first bid was knocked back. Improved offer expected. Now, does this affect the Gyokeres' interest? Is it one or the other?
According to the source material, no. The understanding is that any potential Mbeumo deal is seen as completely separate from anything involving Gyokeres.
Right. So they could, theoretically, be pursuing both in parallel.
It appears that way. Like they're looking at different profiles or options for those attacking slots simultaneously.
Okay, so potentially Mbeumo may be still exploring Gyokeres, needing depth anyway. That sounds like it could get expensive. Which leads us to the money. We've heard reports painting a picture of, doom and gloom financially at United. How does pursuing these kinds of players fit with that narrative, according to the source?
It's a fair question. The source tries to square that circle.
Yeah.
Their take is that the initial signings, like Kuna, who's already done, and potentially Mbeumo, if that happens, would probably fall within that budget United has set aside for the start of the window.
So there's some money available up front, regardless of sale.
That's the suggestion. For those initial moves, yes.
But for anything bigger or later on, like
Yeah.
say funding a $60 million Gyokeres deal.
Exactly. The source suggests that Thereafter, then, you might see a situation where Manchester United will have to maybe make sales to fund other signings. So initial deals might be okay, but significant further spending. That likely hinges on departures.
Sales become key then. And given they're looking at Mbeumo, potentially Gyokeres, players who operate in those wider attacking or support roles who, the source suggests, might be on the chopping block to raise cash.
The reports name 4 prominent players in those kinds of areas who look up for sale effectively. They are Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, and Garnacho.
Wow. Okay, those are 4 big names in attack. What sort of money could they realistically expect to get for that group, according to the source?
The estimate given is that if, and it's an if, they could sell all 4 permanently, the combined fees could be around upwards of 100 to 125 million pounds.
Okay, 125 million potentially. That would certainly free up significant funds. But is selling players like Rashford and Sancho, who are presumably on huge wages, actually easy?
And that's the big problem the source points out. Because of the high wages involved, especially for Rashford and Sancho, finding clubs willing and able to take on those salaries permanently is difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. Other clubs have their own wage structures to worry about.
Exactly. So because of that difficulty, the source warns that loan moves again for these players can't be ruled out.
Right, but a loan doesn't bring in that big transfer fee they might need.
Precisely. And not only that, but to even get those loan deals done for the really high earners, the source suggests United might have to subsidize some of those wages.
So United could end up still paying part of their salary while they play somewhere else.
Potentially, yes. Just to facilitate the move and get them playing, it just adds another layer of complexity to the whole financial balancing act. You need to sell, but selling high earners is tough, so you might have to loan them out and even chip in for their wages. It's tricky.
It really shows how everything's connected, doesn't it? Targeting players, fees, wages, needing to sell, the difficulty of selling. It's all linked.
Yeah, the reports paint a picture of a club juggling a lot of different complex factors all at once.
Okay, let's just quickly pull this together then. Based on these reports we've dived into, United are actively looking for attackers. Serious interest in Gyokeres, explored via intermediaries, but potential wage issues are a big flag. Ongoing talks for Mbeumo, who reportedly really wants the move, first bid rejected, second expected. This striker search is happening regardless of Højlund, who says he's staying to fight. Financially, it seems there's a budget for initial deals like maybe Mbeumo, but bigger moves later likely depend on selling players like Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, Garnacho, and selling them is complicated by their high wages, meaning loans with potential wage subsidies might be necessary.
That sums it up pretty well. A very dynamic situation with lots of moving parts, player wishes, club valuations, financial constraints.
It really is a complex puzzle they're trying to solve. So, thinking about all of that, here's something maybe for you to chew on. Given those financial pressures, the potential need for tricky sales, and then you weigh that against the reported high wage demands for someone like Gyokeres versus the strong desire from someone like Mbeumo to join. Does this suggest United might realistically have to prioritize targets where the pull of the club and the players' willingness are strongest, perhaps over chasing the absolute most expensive options? Will that player desire maybe overcome some of those financial hurdles in the end?
It's a key question, isn't it? The sources lay out the factors, but the actual decisions? Well, we'll see how that plays out in the coming weeks.
We certainly will. It's a fascinating window already. Hopefully this deep dive into the reports has given you a clearer picture of what's going on behind the scenes at United right now. Thanks for joining us. We hope you feel a bit more clued up on the dynamics. Catch you on the next deep dive.